Good evening, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. I'm always happy to come back to Sentul Temple. This is, and especially in this new hall, it's very well equipped, and I like the projector. It's a very big picture. Everybody can see very clearly. In a nutshell, this thing called getting in the zone is really getting out of what we are trapped in. We are trapped in a very stressful world, that is for sure. And we are trapped in a very fast-paced society. Things are moving so fast. So we're going to learn how to get out of it. And a more complete method of how to get out of it is also found in the Eightfold Path. And in fact, specifically, I'm going to discuss the actual practice of the middle way. And referring to the Eightfold Path, how we can actually get out of society, pressure and stress. In fact, today I'm going to focus on in two areas, which is not quite a common thing to do. But first, I'm going to talk about applying the middle way in a meditation context. So in other words, how does it work in meditation? And then applying the practical part of the middle way in our day-to-day experiences. So we're in for a little treat. We're going to take a look at the Buddha's teaching from a very scientific perspective. I will also show a few important things from the scientific research. Right? So first, I'm going to quickly run through how our mind reacts emotionally to pleasant and unpleasant feelings from our sense perceptions. Everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch has a pleasant or unpleasant sensations associated with it. And then when we react, we feel stressed. Right? How we become easily stressed. Because when we react, we will either feel lustful or greedy towards pleasant sensations, or we will feel anger and hatred towards unpleasant sensations. So this actually is a kind of emotional excitement, and this causes the mind to become disturbed. So the sharing really centers around to how we can learn to tame our emotions, both during meditation, in the course of meditation, and also in our daily experiences by applying the middle way in a very practical way. And the Pali term for this middle way, it is very important to take a look at the Pali words which came from the sutras, and that is Majjhima Patipada. What does it mean? So basically it means to get in the zone, getting in the zone and experience a more peaceful and tranquil life. Basically getting in the zone simply means you're cruising. Life is sweet and life is beautiful. That's really what getting in the zone is all about. This term, getting in the zone, is used very popularly amongst sports people. When they say they are playing their game very well, let's say they're winning, like Lee Chong Wei, he's winning a game, then he says he's in the zone, So this is a very common term used when people are cruising. They are not trapped with the problems, but they are able to ride above their problems. So that is really what getting in the zone all about. The core of this is really about mindfulness. But mindfulness is really a part of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what the Buddha taught as the middle way. And in fact, even bigger than that would be the Eightfold Path. So I'll just quickly run through the middle way. You see, when the Buddha first became enlightened in his first sermon, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, setting into motion the wheel of Dhamma, he actually talked about the middle way before he spoke about the Four Noble Truths. So it's very important to understand what really is the middle way. So I basically show you what I learned from my teacher, Venerable Dr. Punaji, about the middle way. The Buddha advised us to stay away from two extremities which bring us suffering. And the first is when we react to sensations, when we react emotionally. So basically this is expression of emotional excitement by releasing our tension in action. That means when it is something pleasant, oh, we want more of it. When it is something unpleasant, oh, we hate it. So that reaction, that is one extreme we have to avoid. And the Buddha knew that because when he was a prince, he had experienced sensual pleasures every day. So he knew what it was like. He was living in 3 palaces. So he really indulged in a life of pleasures when he was a prince. And then the other extreme he warned us against, when he renounced from princely life, he went into the practice of asceticism. And in the practice of asceticism, they learn to withhold all reactions. That means every time they see something pleasant or unpleasant, they don't react, they hold back. And so that's why they even try not to eat. They eat very few grains of rice a day, and they try not to drink. They only drink a few drops of water a day. In fact, he even got to the point where, as Prince Siddhartha, he reached a point, or rather as the renunciate, he reached a point where he tried to stop breathing, and then that was when he fainted. It was after that he realized that was not the right way. So he warned us, after becoming an awakened, he warned us against these 2 extremities. And that first one is our emotional reaction to sensual feelings, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant. And the other extreme is withholding it, forceful effort to restrain emotions, forcing yourself not to react. Either way, it brings suffering. It brings a lot of pain and all kinds of emotional reactions involved in that. So he taught the middle way. Now, people used to think the middle way is a little bit of pleasures and a little bit of withholding. That is the middle way. That is not the middle way. That is a compromise. The real middle way is a third way. And what is a third way? When you become emotionally aroused by sensations in the environment, what do? The third way is conscious relaxation. Consciously bring your mind to a state of calmness. Bring your body to a state of relaxation and comfort. So relaxing the body and taming the mind. That is really conscious relaxation. And only when you're able to do that, you bring your attention inwards, and that is called introspective attention. And this is what is commonly called sati or satipatthana, which is the practice behind it. Or the English translation is commonly called mindfulness. But my teacher, Venerable Dr. Punaji, never likes to use the word mindfulness, because mindfulness is not a very accurate word. It's used very popularly everywhere, especially by Westerners. But the real meaning behind that sati, or the practice of satipatthana, is to bring the attention inwards. So introspective attention. And what do you do when you bring your attention inwards? Is to examine how your body is affected, how you're feeling about it. There are 4 areas to examine, to introspect. How the body is affected, the reactions of the body, how the body feels, and how your emotions are aroused, and finally how your thoughts arise from the arousal of these emotions. So that is really mindfulness, what people call mindfulness. But in the Western world, the word mindfulness is used very loosely, and a lot of people even use it to mean so many other things. So therefore, it is better to stick back to the original teachings of the Buddha rather than follow these Western gurus who talk about mindfulness in so many other different ways. So when you bring your attention inwards, then you are able to see how the body and the mind are affected by what's going on outside. And only by doing that, you can bring the mind to a state of peace and calmness. And that ultimately is a state of mental equilibrium, samadhi. Again, samadhi is often translated as concentration, but actually it's not, according to my teacher. Samadhi is really the stillness of the mind, the calmness and the mental equilibrium that is achieved when the mind is completely at ease and not agitated. So this is really mental equilibrium. And the complete process of how we can practice this is found in the Eightfold Way, or the Eightfold Path. This middle way, actually you can look at it from both meditation context and also daily life. If we talk about meditation context, how does this work in meditation? Now, what do you do when you first want to meditate? You find a peaceful, quiet place to sit down, and then you relax your body. And then you allow your whole body to relax and your mind to stabilize. So what are you doing? Conscious relaxation. You are allowing your whole body to relax and then allow the mind to slow down and calm down. That is conscious relaxation. And then when you're ready to begin your meditation, you begin to bring your attention, your sati, inwards. Introspective attention. And when you bring that attention in and you focus on whatever the object that you have chosen to use. In most cases, for most practice of samatha, we are using the breath, so mindfulness of the breath. And gradually, the whole mind will come to a state of peace and calm. And then we reach mental equilibrium. So if that practice is perfected, we could go on to experience what is commonly called jhana. So I'll just very briefly show you the state of the jhana. So you reach a state of jhana, that is mental equilibrium. So this is the meditation context. Then we talk about daily life. How does this apply to daily life? Well, very simple. When you see things around you that is exciting your emotion, somebody says something that upsets you, or you taste something that is either pleasant or unpleasant, and you feel emotionally excited, what do? Instead of forcing yourself not to react or whatever, just learn to relax. Let go. Learning to let go. This is really letting go. First step towards letting go is relaxing, not allowing the body to be all tensed up. So relaxing, conscious relaxation. And then bring your attention inwards and ask yourself, whatever that I'm experiencing that is upsetting me, why is it upsetting me? How does it affect my body? How does it affect my mind? And we are able to question that and understand what is happening. Then you can actually come up with a solution in the future not to be affected by whatever that is affecting you. So this is introspective attention, bringing the attention in. Now when you are able to do that, you are then allowing yourself to reach a state where you become very comfortable physically and mentally very composed and calm. That is mental equilibrium in a practical way. So this is again how it can work in daily life. So this middle way is really a very practical solution to many of the problems we experience around us. So let's take a closer look at these three stages: conscious relaxation, introspective attention, and mental equilibrium. When we speak of conscious relaxation, it simply means we consciously release tensions because the body is now excited. Learn to just let go, relax the body, and then calm the mind with mindful breathing. Pay attention to how your breathing is working, because the best tool you can use, always available to you, is your breathing. To use your breathing as a tool to calm the mind. By focusing on your breathing, your mind calms down. Because when you focus on your breathing, when your mind is focused on breathing, number one, you are not thinking about yesterday's problems anymore. Number two, you are not worried about tomorrow's anxieties anymore. Number three, you're free from having expectations of the present moment. You're freeing yourself from all three things: memory of the past, imagination of the future, and expectations in the present moment. All these three are actually disturbing you, disrupting your mental composure. So by observing the breathing, you can do that. And you bring your attention inwards, introspective attention. That means gently bring attention inwards to observe how the body and the mind are affected by whatever is going on out there. And when you're able to do that, you will then be able to reach a state of mental equilibrium. And this is really how you become composed, right? And the mind becomes stilled, and you're free from emotional agitation, arousals, and excitement. So this is really the middle way in a very practical way. And the middle way is really a very broad explanation of how we can practice the Eightfold Path. So if we take a look at the Eightfold Path, then basically the first thing we got to do is right view. Develop right view. And how can we develop right view? We develop right view by listening to Dhamma, by attending discussions, Dhamma discussions, by asking questions to the venerables, the monastics, and also in a forum where you can discuss Dhamma, by sharing this and learning from the sutras. All this will help us cultivate right view. And then we have right intention, meaning now we want to practice and fulfill the practice to reap the fruits of the practice. So this is really giving us this initial level of wisdom, panya, the very initial level of wisdom. Without this initial level of wisdom, you cannot go on to complete the practice of the Eightfold Way. Because if you don't have right view, you then will be thinking of things which are unwholesome or distracted by things which you think are the realities, but they are all basically things that are coming and going, anicca. So it is very important to cultivate this right view and having this right intentions. And then having cultivated this is still, at this point, it is still very largely intellectual. Now you got to put it into practice. So what do? One of the first things you can practice is right speech. Right? Ensure that you do not. There are 4 things about right speech. You do not speak untruth, right? Telling lies. You do not speak in such a way that you cause people to fight amongst themselves, right? Creating trouble to people. That is a divisive speech. Number 3 is you do not speak in such a way that you hurt other people, either hurting their feelings or causing harm to them by saying things which are affecting them in a negative way. And number 4, you don't engage in gossips and useless speech. So these are the 4 things about right speech. Do not tell lies. Do not create trouble for other people. Do not hurt people with your words. And do not engage in useless speech. Useless speech, a lot of us do that a lot nowadays. Even I'm sometimes guilty of that. Where do we find useless speech? 2 big places. Number 1, WhatsApp. Number 2, Facebook. Right? Actually, one more which I don't use. Number 3, Twitter. Right? So, we receive a lot of all kinds of fake news and all kinds of sensational news on WhatsApp. What do? We forward to all our friends. Right? And sometimes some of this is very, very unwholesome, because what do they say? They say, if you receive this, you must forward to 10 friends. If you don't forward to 10 friends, something terrible will happen to you. Wow, that is very unwholesome. Because when you forward that to a friend, what are you saying? You are telling your friend, you now must forward this to 10 friends, otherwise something terrible will happen to you. You are engaging in unwholesome speech. So beware, The same with Facebook. People start posting all kinds of videos, all kinds of fake news, just to create sensations. So this is really cultivating right speech, is to refrain from all these things. And then right behavior, right now, this right actions, the way we live our life, the way we do things with kindness, do wholesome things. Right? Don't engage in unwholesome activities. And finally, don't engage in unwholesome livelihood. Right livelihood, or my teacher calls harmonious lifestyle. This is not about just the occupation. A lot of people translate this number 5 as right livelihood is about your occupation. No, it actually, my teacher pointed out, it is really about the way you live your life. That's why he calls it harmonious lifestyle. Not just right livelihood, but harmonious lifestyle. And these 3 things, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, will lead us to practice sila, which is virtuous morality, virtues. And when we have reached that stage where we are practicing virtuous morality to the best of our ability, then we are ready to meditate and benefit from the practice of meditation. Because the practice of meditation will take our spiritual growth one level deeper. Without meditation, we would have cultivated a certain level of spiritual benefits, but that is not deep enough. It is only through meditation that we can go deeper, because through meditation, we will be able to purify our mind. Maybe many of us would already have very peaceful and kind thinking, so you can say in a way your mind is fairly good, but we still need purification, and it's only through meditation. So the third phase would be the meditation part, starting with right effort, or my teacher calls harmonious exercise, sama vayama. And through that, you can then meditate and bring yourself into a state or where you can bring your attention inwards and practice satipatthana. So you have right mindfulness. This is really, my teacher calls harmonious attention, where you can now practice sati, and the actual process to practice this sati properly is in the teaching of the satipatthana. And when you're able to do that, you can bring your mind to a state of mental equilibrium, samadhi, right? And this is translated as right concentration, but my teacher pointed out it is actually harmonious mental equilibrium, bringing the mind to a state of stillness where you are experiencing jhana, because that, in meditation, you are in the zone. When you are able to practice your meditation to a level where you are experiencing jhana, then you are in the zone in meditation, right? So in order to gain a better understanding of this whole process, it's very important to recognize all this ultimately is about cultivating the mind, purifying the mind. So it's important to understand, what did the Buddha mean when he talked about the mind? What was the Buddha referring to when he spoke about the mind? The Buddha pointed out that the mind is really an activity, and this activity comes in three parts. There are three parts of this activity. The only way you can understand an activity is to experience it, because activity is not an entity. Activity is something you can experience, it is not existence. The mind itself does not exist. You cannot say, this is the mind. You can't hold on to your mind, but you can experience your mind. So that's why the Buddha pointed out that mind is something that you can experience, because mind is an activity. And there are three parts of this experience. The first experience the Buddha calls vijnana. And this is really about what we see, hear, smell, taste and touch. We create a perception of our sense experience. So this is really what was perceived through our sense organs. So vijnana, this is perception. And then the next thing the Buddha pointed out is mano. This is really the cognitive process, the ability to cognize and conceptualize. That means to be able to interpret what you have seen, heard, smelled, taste and touch. And this is to be able to recognize what you have seen, the rupa, and to be able to give meaning to it, giving nama to it. That's where the nama rupa arises, to be able to give a meaning to what you have perceived. So this is categorized interpretation of perception, the second part of the mind. And of course there is also a third part of the mind, which is commonly called emotions, but my teacher pointed out it's more accurately called mood or temperament. The psychologists like to call this affective process. So the mano is the cognitive process, and the chitta is the affective process. What is this affective process? It is our emotional reaction. Tanha is really referring to the emotional reaction when we experience something that is pleasant or unpleasant. So pleasant or unpleasant feelings, right? This feeling is Vedana, and that arouses our emotions. We become emotionally excited and we start to react to it, and that leads to mood and temperament, right? Or it's really a kind of emotional state of the mind. At the same time, this reaction is, if it is something pleasant, we want more of it. If it is something unpleasant, we want to get rid of it. So basically, this is lobha and dosa. And then the next thing is that we personalize every experience, and that is really moha, the delusion of self-centered existence. So these are the three aspects of the mind. And according to the explanations from my teacher, he pointed out that we can actually correlate what's going on inside the brain with how the mind is working. So if we quickly look at the brain is made of three parts. The oldest part, which is brainstem, that keeps us alive, the survival part of the brain, or survival brain, and then the emotional brain called the limbic system, and then the thinking brain called the cerebral cortex. So how does that correlate with the activity of the mind? Basically, this limbic system is the emotional brain, and that is where we speak of these emotions. That is the affective process, the chitta. So the activity of that part of the brain really leads to the experience of chitta. And then the activity of the thinking brain, the outermost cerebral cortex, that leads to the experience of mano. The important thing here is that in all of Buddha's teaching, he has pointed out for us to tame our emotions. Everything is centered around emotional arousal and reaction. When we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something, pleasant or unpleasant, our emotions are aroused. And when we begin to react, so the important thing is to tame our emotions. But unfortunately, one thing I must point out, a lot of people who translate from Pali into English, they don't segregate between these two words, mano and chitta. They translate mano as mind. They translate chitta as mind, when these two are very different activities, and yet they are both translated as mind. Well, they both refer to mind, but the mind has these two main activities going on, the emotions and the thinking. We have a thinking mind and we have an emotional mind. They are doing something separately. Our thinking mind and our emotional mind are doing two different things. So we must be clear what is mano and what is chitta. And I'll point out to you, if you take a look at this Chitta Sutra, and this is the common translation, popular translation by the Western translators, it says the world is led by mind. By mind, it's dragged here and there. Mind is the one thing that has all under its control. Now, it doesn't really give the true meaning of what the Buddha was trying to teach. My teacher, Venerable Dr. Punaji, pointed out, and he gave a fresh translation to that. And this is his translation. Emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Distress is mental suffering. The mind getting disturbed, right? Distress. And emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. Because the Buddha used the word chitta. He was referring to emotions. You see the difference? When the translation segregates the meaning or discerns the meaning of chitta and the meaning of mano, it makes a lot more sense. Right? Then you begin to realize it is our emotion that is disturbing us. And the Buddha pointed out, now we talk about the meditation part, how we can use meditation to calm the emotion. So the practice of meditation to calm the emotion is looking at the 5 hindrances. So these 5 hindrances really is the emotional reaction. The first one is called kamachanda, and that is basically desires or lust for sensual pleasure, something that is pleasurable, we want more of it. Then comes vyapada or byapada, two different spelling. Anger or hatred towards these pleasures. Now, these two can lead to the next two states of mind. Because when we begin to react and we're not getting what we want, we give up. So it leads to a state called tina mida, which is often translated as sloth and torpor. But what tina mida refers to is that the mind has lost interest. The mind has become weak, lethargic, and drowsy. The mind gives up. So the mind is drowsy and lethargic. That's why it is translated as sloth and torpor, drowsiness, sleepiness, and so on, because the mind is now weakened by overexertion from the first two. And then number 4 is the other extreme. The mind is now agitated, extremely agitated, leads to anxiety, worry, and restlessness. Right? Udacha, kukucha. Right? So basically this is the state of the mind, and then at the same time our mind is torn between two worlds, the emotional mind and the thinking mind. They are tearing us apart. That is called vicikiccha. Unfortunately, vicikiccha again is another incorrect translation. It is commonly translated as skeptical doubt. But actually vicikiccha is not about skeptical doubt. The psychologists have a perfect term for it. It's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive means the way we are thinking. Dissonance means being torn apart in different directions. So what is cognitive dissonance? Vicikicca. It is really the mind is being torn between feeling, emotional part of the mind, the chitta part of the mind, and thinking, right? The reasoning part of the mind, the rational part of the mind. Our mind is constantly being pulled in two different directions. Because we make decisions, we can make decisions based on our feeling. We like something, so we choose to do more of what we like. Or we hate something, we choose not to do it. So this is reacting to emotions, the feelings. Or we can think, if something that we may like, but it is not healthy for us, we should refrain from doing it. Right? I know some of you won't like it if I say this, but eating durian is so pleasurable. But durian is not healthy for you. So we should learn to stop eating durian. Can we do that? Well, I don't know. So the mind is being torn between knowing that durian is not healthy for you, that is the thinking part, the reasoning part, and at the same time enjoying durian, cannot give it up. Right? Many of us have this kind of indulgences. I do too. There are some foods that I can't give up. We all have our indulgences. So when feeling and reasoning are pulling in opposite directions, we begin to experience this mind being torn apart. This condition is vicikicca, or the psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. The mind is being torn in different directions. Dissonance. What happens then when that happens? When the mind is torn in different directions, we autonomously, that means automatically, react according to our feeling. That's what we always do. We react to our feelings. And then, that's where we use our thinking. You see, we use our thinking to justify our reaction. So in other words, we're very clever. We use our thinking mind, our intelligence, to justify why we react emotionally. We're very good at that. And that is called justification. But usually, when we are torn between reasoning and feeling, what do we choose most of the time? Our reasoning or our feeling? Which one wins most of the time? Feeling wins most of the time. But don't be too hard on yourself. The scientists have come up with an explanation why feelings win most of the time. So I'm going to show you because it has to do with the brain. Now before I show you, I just want to point out two key words. There are two parts of your brain, one part responsible for your suffering, the other part responsible for your happiness. The part that is responsible for your suffering is called the amygdala. The amygdala is the one inside the emotional brain, and that is the part that is responsible for your suffering. Another part of your brain, your thinking brain, especially the front, where there is this part called the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex, that is your thinking brain. That is the part of the brain responsible for your happiness. Because it is with that brain that you're able to choose, you're able to rationalize, and you're able to reason out what is right from wrong. And then you can choose the good thing, and that can lead to your happiness. So your thinking brain, prefrontal cortex, will help you attain some happiness in life. Whereas your emotional brain, the amygdala, is the one that will disturb you and agitate you and cause suffering to you. So let's take a look at what the scientists have to say about that cognitive dissonance, vicikicca. Why is it that when we are torn between feelings and thinking, we end up invariably choosing feeling over thinking? We react emotionally more than reacting in a reasonable, rational, and intelligent way.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tug!
And when we try to control them, we start a tug of war between our brain's oldest and newest parts. While ancient structures like the amygdala respond to threats by trying to turn our anger or fear on, it's newer structures, such as the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain, that try to turn them off. It's the tug of war between these two systems that gives rise to our emotions. At New York University, neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux has studied how the amygdala and the cortex shape our emotional responses. You know more about the amygdala than anybody alive, and you still can't control yours.
No.
Why?
Now, there's an interesting thing, again, that has to do with the wiring of the brain. This is, if we could just look at it here. So this is the human brain inside a skull. And the prefrontal cortex is here in the front, right behind your forehead. And that is the newest part of the brain. This is where we make our decisions. This is where we plan for the future and strategize. The lateral prefrontal cortex has no connectivity with the amygdala. The amygdala has super highways to talk to the cortex, but the prefrontal cortex has only back roads and side streets to get to the amygdala. And therefore, it is unable to tell the amygdala, cool it.
But why are there no connections?
We're in the process of evolving as we speak, and those connections have not been put in yet. This thing was built to do fancy things cognitively, not necessarily to control our emotions.
So the way the brain has evolved, it is actually evolved to do things cognitively, fancy things, like creating inventions, inventing camera, inventing light, computers, and so on. The brain is very good at doing that, but it is not good at taming the emotions. Why? Because from the emotional brain, the amygdala, there's very strong connections going to the thinking brain. Which means when the amygdala is aroused, our emotions are aroused, it is sending a lot of messages to the thinking brain, disturbing the thinking brain, sabotaging the rational thinking. Emotional thoughts are sabotaging the rational thinking. See, the way our mind works, there are two kinds of thoughts. Thoughts that arise unconsciously, and that is emotions, or thoughts we can choose. So in other words, we either choose our thoughts, which means we are thinking, or we allow thoughts to choose us, which means it is emotions. But because the amygdala has very strong connections to the thinking brain, it is sending a lot of sabotaging messages to the thinking brain, and that is disturbing our ability to think rationally. So thoughts are choosing us more often than we are choosing thoughts. This is really what is happening. Right? At the same time, from the thinking brain, there are very weak connections going back to the amygdala, which means the thinking brain is not very capable of taming the amygdala, calming down the amygdala. So when the amygdala gets excited, it takes control of us. This is why earlier on I pointed out in the Chitta Sutra, it says that emotions is that one thing to which we are all spellbound because of this. So now you realize that that is what's going on inside your brain. But don't do this. Don't next time when you get emotional and you react emotionally, don't go and say, oh, it's not my fault, it's my amygdala. Don't do that. That is actually blaming it on somebody else or something else. But it is still in your mind, So now we take this practice of the middle way and learning how to tame the emotions in a meditation context. And the next couple of slides I borrowed from Bhante Agachita or Ayasma Agachita, where he pointed out that the practice of meditation is explained throughout the sutras, and he used this particular sutra, Tatiya Samadhi Sutra, in Anguttara Nikaya, where it pointed out about these four things. So when speaking of samatha meditation, this is really talking about the 4 steps or 4 ways to still the mind. See, samatha simply means stilling the mind or tranquility of the mind, bringing the mind to a state of tranquil peace, tranquility, or what we call mental equilibrium. So this is really, in the meditation context, this is in the zone. This is really talking about bringing the mind to a state of cruising in the zone. Right? So what's going on? So very quickly, the first one is about how is the chitta to be made to stand properly, and that is steadying the chitta. The second one is how the chitta is to be made to sit properly, settling down the chitta. And the third one is how the chitta is to be made unified. Unified here means the chitta, the emotional mind, and our thinking mind, the mano, the two of them are working together. When the two are working together, there's no conflict. When there's no conflict, there is no vichikicha. Vichikicha is simply that the mano and the chitta are in conflict. But when there is no conflict, when they are unified, that is in the zone, in the mind. This is really your mind going in the zone. the unified part. So how is the chitta to be made unified with the mano? And how is the chitta to be brought together and placed together in a state of composure? That is really bringing to the level of samadhi. All these are really, at the end of the day, referring to the chitta. So that's why it's very important when you read translations, when they translate chitta as mind, you don't really understand what's going on. Here, the Buddha was really referring to stilling the emotions. Meditation is really about stilling the emotions, bringing the emotion to a state of standstill, stopping the emotion from reacting, so that it works together with the mano. Chitta and mano are working together, unified. Right? This is called ekagata, commonly translated as single-pointedness, but actually it means working together in a unified manner. It's not really single-pointedness. So these are really the four things: to steady the chitta, to settle the chitta, to unify the chitta, compose the chitta. And this is found in another sutra, the Vitakka Santana Sutra. This is happening when this is happening, when we're able to cultivate our meditation up to this state, we will begin to experience the jhanas. Because here it's about stopping or eliminating the reactions of the 5 hindrances. So very quickly, I'm not going to go deep into meditation, but just to show you cruising in the zone. When we talk about in meditation, when we cruise in the zone, what is happening? We are experiencing the jhanas. So there are 4 kinds of jhana. The first one is made of those 5 constituents or 5 components, right? In vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, and ekagata. When we're able to do that and bring the mind to that state of stillness, we are experiencing the first jhana. And then in the first jhana, this vitakka, vichara is then stopped. And that leads us to the second jhana. And then in the second jhana, the piti part of the mind is then also stilled. And that leads us to the third jhana. And finally, the fourth one is when we're able to still sukha. It then reaches the state of purely ekagata. Ekagata simply means the 2 minds are working as one. The opposite of cognitive dissonance. And what is the opposite of cognitive dissonance? It's cognitive consonance. Consonance means the 2 are working together hand in hand. That is consonance. Dissonance is when they are torn apart. So basically this is about meditation. Right? So this is the meditation part of cruising in the zone. Now the practical part, the practice of day-to-day living, how we can cruise in the zone. And actually that is really the gem of today's sharing, how we can learn to cruise in the zone. We still go back to the original teaching of the Buddha, which is the first sermon here, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, setting into motion the wheel of Dhamma. The first thing is that Buddha pointed out that there is dukkha. Dukkha is the suffering that we are experiencing. And then there are the origin and the causes of dukkha, samudaya. And then of course there is a way we can stop it, cessation of dukkha, nirodha. Nirodha means cessation, bringing to an end, right? Nirodha. And then the Buddha taught there are eightfold ways to teach us that can lead to the ending of suffering. The way leading to the cessation of suffering, the eightfold way, magga. Magga is really the method or methodology or the practice that leads us to the ending of suffering. So this is really talking about the whole process. I'm not going to go deep into that, but we talk from a very practical point of view. So what is a very practical point of view? Human beings, unfortunately, in a very practical way, we are always regretting things from the past. We do that all the time. And what else do? We are always fearful of things in the future because we don't know what's going to happen next. And what else? We have too many expectations around us, dissatisfied with whatever is happening. So these are the 3 things. The first one is because of the memory. Memory brings back experiences from the past, episodes from the past, and then we regret it. But it's already gone. Why do we keep regretting it? But we do that all the time. And then the second part is imagination. Imagination about a future that hasn't happened yet. We become anxious. We become fearful of the future. And the third one is our expectations of the present moment. We're always having expectations. That's why every time we see something, we're never satisfied. Not good enough. That is all expectations. So these are the three things: imagination, memory, expectations. So how does that relate to practice? Practical thing. The practice is this key word, patipada. What I call getting in the zone. How do I come to that conclusion? Now, when the Buddha spoke about the way leading to the ending of, or the cessation of suffering, the fourth noble truth, the Pali word there is dukkha nirodha gamini patipada ariya sachang. So the word patipada is there. Patipada has a few meanings. I will come to that in a moment. And then when the Buddha spoke about the middle way, again it is majjhima patipada. Why? Because patipada has a number of important meaning behind it. Patipada doesn't have just one simple meaning. It's quite a complex word. In fact, a lot of Pali words are quite complex. They have multiple meaning depending on context sensitive meaning. One meaning is that it is the way or the path to reach a goal. That's what patipada means. The way or the path to reach a destination. The way. Some people call it the practice, right? That's why some people use the word patipada to refer to the practice. It also means following the flow. When something is moving smoothly, you want to go along with it, following the flow. But if I were to take it one level deeper, I say that is getting in the zone. When things are cruising smoothly, you want to be part of it. You want to go along with it, cruising along with it. That is getting in the zone. So this is really a deeper way of looking at the meaning of the word patipada, not just practice. Very common, the word patipada refers to practice. That is referring to the first meaning, the way or path to reach a goal, the practice that takes you to your destination. So if we were to take it further and say, talking about in the zone, how does that work then, in the middle way? If we look at it, the first two, conscious relaxation and introspective attention, are talking about actual practice, right? The practice of it. So these two are talking about practice. The third one, mental equilibrium, is the fruits you harvest from the practice, the composure of the mind. And that is in the zone. So in other words, when we talk about the middle way, conscious relaxation, introspective attention are the practices, and mental equilibrium is in the zone. You're now in the zone because your mind is fully composed and cruising, and you're really feeling relaxed and peaceful, tranquil. That is really in the zone. And to do that, we need to practice, and that is conscious relaxation and introspective attention. These two are the practice, the practical part. So how do we practice these two? I call this the 3-step self-compassion. We're going to learn how to pause, relax, and think. So what does that mean? When we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch anything around us that is exciting our emotion, what should we do? Very often we unmindfully react to it. We don't do that. The middle way is learning how to pause. That means when we get excited, stop, pause, don't react, and think about it first, or allow yourself to relax first before you even think about it. So pausing first, don't react, and then relax the body. Right? So the first part, pausing, means to allow time for emotional excitement and anxiety to calm down, and allow these chemicals in your body to subside, the hormones that are being released. Because when you get excited, hormones are being released. And then you can further accelerate that by consciously relaxing. And the relaxed part, taking deep breath. The breathing is a very helpful tool. Taking the deep breath to relax the body, and then to consciously compose the mind. So that when your mind is more composed and calm, and your body is more relaxed and comfortable, you are now able to think what you want to do, the right thing to do. And then when you go into the think, then you have purposefully focused on wholesome and beneficial response to the problem. So the first two is so important, pausing and relaxing before you even think about what you want to do. But very often we don't do that. And when you're able to pause and relax, you can then choose your thoughts. And this is very important, because even the psychologists have said that learn to choose your thoughts. And this is actually the quote from a very famous psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl, where he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. It says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies the freedom and our power to choose our response. And in those choices lie our growth and our happiness. So what does it mean? The first one, between stimulus and response. Stimulus means the things that arouse your emotion, the stimulating your emotion. Response means what you do, your reaction to it. So between something that arouses your emotion and the time you react to it, there is a gap. And he calls it, there is a gap, a space. And in that space, that moment, that gap is your opportunity. If you learn to focus on that gap, that moment when you get aroused and before you react, there is an opportunity you can focus on. And if you are able to take advantage of that space, that gap, then you can actually learn how to choose to be more happy by choosing the right thoughts. So you are able to choose your thoughts properly. So in other words, he's in a way also telling you, pause and relax. Create that gap, expand that gap, and then you can choose what to do, how to react. And in your choices will lead to your happiness. So it's very important to learn how to pause and relax. Right? And that's where breathing comes in. So we're going to try out some simple breathing exercises, because breathing is the most critically overlooked relaxation tool. It is the easiest way to relax the body and calm the mind. It increases oxygen intake, right? And this is really food for your cells. It stabilizes your heart rate and your blood pressure. It regulates your body temperature and your blood circulation. And it restores and maintains a condition in your body, which is stability in your body, called homeostasis. And of course, it calms the nervous system, indicating an absence of threat. So mindful breathing is very important. So I'm going to very quickly run through 4 kinds of mindful breathing to help you. First is diaphragmatic breathing. The second one is diaphragm exercise. You see, the diaphragm is the part of, it is a muscle. It is the part in your body that separates the lungs from your bowel, your stomach. And that is the thing that helps you breathe. When you breathe, the diaphragm is moving up and down. Right? So exercising the diaphragm helps. I'll explain why in a moment. And then the third one is neuronal oxygenation, and the fourth one is mindful breath visualization. So this diaphragm actually is moving up and down when you're breathing. And the diaphragm is connected to a set of nerves called the vagus nerve, V-A-G-U-S. Vagus nerves reach out to all the organs in your body, and it goes all the way to your brain. So when the vagus nerve is being stimulated, it actually causes you to relax. It creates a condition called the parasympathetic nervous system, which means your body can be relaxed. And it triggers the release of good hormones. Some of the good hormones, endorphin is a very powerful hormone. So this diaphragm, when you learn how to exercise the diaphragm, you are actually triggering the release of more and more endorphin. So let's take a look at the mechanics of breathing according to what the scientists have to say.
Mechanics of breathing. Consciously take a breath and think about the fact that there are 10 different muscle groups working together to make this happen. These muscle groups include the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. The main muscle used for breathing is the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a dome-shaped structure consisting of several large muscles, which is sandwiched between the chest cavity, containing the lungs and the rib cage, and the abdomen, containing the digestive system, including your stomach. The muscles that move the rib cage itself are the internal and external intercostal muscles. They are each attached to the ribs and run between them. To inhale air, the diaphragm contracts and moves down, while the external intercostal muscles contract, forcing the rib cage up and out. The combined effect of the diaphragm and intercostal muscles increases the volume of the chest cavity and expands the lungs. This expansion of the lungs increases their volume, reducing the pressure within them, causing air to be drawn in. This action is similar to a piston sucking petrol into a car engine. In normal breathing, we use around 25% of our lung capacity, which is called our tidal volume. As you inhale deeply, the diaphragm moves further down into the abdomen, pushing your belly out, giving more room for the lungs to expand and draw in more air. This type of breathing is called belly breathing or abdominal breathing and is critical to prepare you for your free dive. Belly breathing allows you to completely fill your lungs with air. The maximum amount of air your lungs can hold is called your total lung capacity. With training, you can use more of your lung capacity.
So in other words, if we learn how to make use of our diaphragm, they actually call it abdominal breathing, but the real term is called diaphragmatic breathing. Using the diaphragm to breathe by flattening out the diaphragm to expand the chest, expand the lungs, and then curving up to compress the lungs. So basically the diaphragm is that muscle separating the lungs from the bowel system. You can actually feel it. Put your hand over your stomach and make a cough. And you can feel something kicking out. That is your diaphragm kicking. Or you do another way is you put your hand there and then you laugh. You can feel that action going on. This is why laughing is very important. Laughing can help you exercise the diaphragm. Exercising the diaphragm will now stimulate the vagus nerve. Stimulating the vagus nerve sends signal to the brain to release a very powerful painkiller hormone called the endorphin, which is actually has very powerful properties. One is that it helps to relieve pain in your body. It helps you calm your mind a little bit, and more importantly, it actually strengthens your immune system. That's why laughing is good for you, because laughing stimulates this vagus nerve, which releases endorphin that strengthens your immune system. This is why I also decided to go all the way to India to learn laughter yoga, because that laughter is really good for you if you use laughter in a very positive and wholesome way. So therefore, the use of the diaphragm can help you breathe. So let's go through quickly how we can do diaphragmatic breathing. Let's try it. We breathe in and breathe out in a very smooth and natural way through 5 seconds. In other words, don't breathe too quickly. Just allow the breathing in to go in slowly. Now, we use the nose to breathe in and the lips to breathe out. Then we can focus on it. Focus on breathing in with your lips, breathing in with your nose, breathing out with your lips, and focus on your diaphragm, allowing your diaphragm to flatten out so that it expands your lungs. Okay, so let's do that now. Right? Everyone now ready? Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in with your nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out with your lips. 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue with that breathing. Now focus on your diaphragm. When you breathe in, focus on your diaphragm to flatten your diaphragm to expand your lungs. When you breathe out, compress your diaphragm to push the air out. And if you have difficulty focusing on your diaphragm, try using your stomach instead. When you breathe in, push out your stomach, because by pushing out your stomach, your diaphragm comes down. When your diaphragm comes down, it expands your lungs. So this is diaphragmatic breathing. You can practice this at home. I've just shown you the technique, so you can practice this at home. What does it do for you? It is relaxing and calming. It helps you cultivate attention, focusing on the breathing, and it will promote good health, because that movement of the diaphragm will trigger the release of endorphin. The second one is to intentionally exercise the diaphragm. And this is basically to take a deep breath through your nose, very deep, and then you push out hard, fast, and fully all the way. Deep breath in, and when you push out, use your lips. Take a deep breath in with your nose, and then push out hard and fast. All the way, as hard as you can. And then deep breath in. all the way until it runs out of breath. Deep breath in, push out all the way. So when you do that, your diaphragm is being worked out. One more time, deep breath in and push out all the way. By doing that, you are actually exercising your diaphragm. It also helps to cultivate a few things, right? Relaxing and calming. When you're able to do that properly, you find that it actually calms your mind, right? And it wakes you up, right? And it actually strengthens your immune system because you're exercising the diaphragm, right? The third one is the 4-6-8 breathing. You breathe in through 4 counts, hold it for 6 counts, and breathe out 8 counts. Now remember, breathing out is twice as long as breathing in. So when you breathe out, must breathe out very slowly. So before you begin, we push out 3 times, push out all the breath from your lungs so that you can start with a fresh breathing, okay? When I say push, 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 everyone blow out 3 times. Like that, blow out, and then deep breath in for 4 counts, hold it for 6 counts, and let release slowly for 8 counts. Okay, ready? Push, push, push. Deep breath in with your nose, and then hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now breathe out slowly through your lips. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Deep breath in, deep breath in. 2, 3, 4, and hold your breath. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out very slowly. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Deep breath in. 2, 3, 4, and hold your breath. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out very slowly. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So this is called neuronal oxygenation. When you do that, it actually increases your brain cells to absorb more oxygen. So this is really cultivating attention and improves alertness and concentration. This technique, remember this 4-6-8. You can use this when you meditate. When you meditate, in the middle of your meditation, you get a bit sleepy and you get drowsy, sloth and torpor, you want to doze off, then you do this. Because when you do this, you wake up and straighten your back and continue your meditation. So this is actually a very helpful technique to help you stay awake when you are meditating. Right? Of course, there are other ways to stay awake, but this is one way if you don't want to get out of your seat while you're meditating. So this is helpful for that. Okay. Now, then the next one, all of us experience some kind of mental condition. We may be losing in motivation, we may feel lazy, we don't want to do much, or we may feel a bit weak or tired or not interested, or we may experience some kind of illness. Whatever it is, every one of us has a certain condition, and here are 7 statements. One of these 7 statements may apply to us. For example, if we are feeling a bit tensed at the moment, maybe a bit muscles are really tense, number 1 is helpful. If we are feeling not motivated with whatever we're doing, or losing inspiration, then number 2 is helpful. If we are feeling that we are not performing very well at our work, we want to try harder, number 3 is helpful. If we are experiencing some kind of illness or medical condition where we are feeling weak, number 4 is very helpful. If we are having some quarrels with people and not happy with someone, number 5 is helpful. And if we are angry, often very angry, and we don't know how to practice metta well enough, and maybe from time to time we're not feeling very compassionate, number 6 is very helpful. Or if we have a serious problem with someone where we find it hard to forgive them, number 7 is very helpful. So these are 7 statements. What I want you to do is just, without telling anyone of course, think about your present situation. What are you experiencing now in life? There is something that is disturbing you, something you're not happy with. Then one of these statements may be helpful to you. And if you can't think of something, never mind, choose number 1. So everyone, pick one. Yeah? Take a look at this list of 7. Pick one. Memorize it. Right? Memorize it, because I'm going to leave this screen in a moment. Have you all chosen one? Yeah? Okay. Memorize the one that you have chosen. Now, this is what we're going to do. Breathe in and out casually and smoothly. No need to do any diaphragmatic breathing or through the lips and mouth and whatever. Always use your nose alone is good enough. Breathe in with the nose and breathe out with the nose. It's up to you, okay? When you breathe in, focus your mind on this thing called I'm breathing in energy. Breathing in is energy. And then when you breathe out, focus on that particular statement that you have picked, the one that you have chosen that may be helpful to you. It could be one of these 7, right? And I'm going to play some music in the background. So everyone, pick the statement that will be helpful to you and sit back and relax. Allow your breathing to go on naturally. As you breathe in, just focus on breathing in energy. As you breathe out, focus on one of the statements. Okay, so this will help you calm your mind very quickly if you focus on the statement that you have chosen. This will help you get in the zone very quickly. Right? So this is really neuro-linguistic programming, conditioning and programming your mind with good thoughts. The word neuro-linguistic, what does it mean? Neuro is referring to the process of the mind. Linguistic is choosing the right words. So you're choosing positive words, and programming is conditioning your mind so that you're now programming your mind to a state where you are able to focus on a particular condition you wish to acquire. You want to be more peaceful, or you want to be more inspired, or you just want to be more relaxed and tranquil. Right? So this is another way of getting in the zone. So these are all the different methods of breathing that help you get in the zone. There is also one more which I won't do today, but it is called laughter yoga. Because laughter yoga can actually promote a very high release of this endorphin that can make and strengthen your immune system very strongly. Okay, so basically these are all the different techniques that can help you get in the zone. And now what really is in the zone? I'll show you what is really in the zone. Watch what they're talking about when they talk about the breathing and slowing down the breathing and so on.
We know that Tiger Woods can do this because he has done it many times. But what is it about his brain that he's able to put the ball into the hole? What we found is the brain can either help you succeed in this athletic activity, or it can help you fail. And we think Tiger Woods has found a way to succeed most of the time because of his ability to modulate his own brain functioning.
Scientists can't scan Tiger Woods' brain in action. He would need to lie motionless, which would make playing golf impossible. So instead, they must make an educated guess.
Because he's blinking so little during a putt, we think that his anxiety is very low. Because eye blinking is usually related to anxiety. So he's very relaxed, like a drowsy state. a drowsy, sleepy level, but yet enough concentration that you can focus on the task.
Athletes call this special feeling being in the zone, when their movements seem to flow without conscious effort. It is the supreme combination of practice involving the cerebellum, concentration of the frontal lobes, and low anxiety of the amygdala within the limbic system.
Zone, it's very hard to get into. I really feel like if I can control my breath and I can get it as slow as possible, that'll slow down my heart. As soon as that happens, I feel like I get total consciousness of everything. All five senses are working the best they could possibly work.
Experts think the brain gets so focused, it's somehow able to block or ignore any irrelevant input. Brain and body begin working in perfect sync.
Athletes and everybody else, for that matter, all want to be in that zone, and there's something special about it. Everything gets aimed at the one task at hand, and when you do that, incredible things can happen. You have a real clarity of thought and decision making.
When I'm in that moment, everything around me is slow and I can control what I'm thinking, I can control what I look at, I can control what thoughts enter my mind, and in turn that gives me the greatest chance for success.
See, all the athletes know how to use breathing to bring themselves in the zone so that they can be very focused and yet relaxed at the same time to be able to respond. You see, if you're not relaxed, if your body is tense, for example, you're playing badminton, you're waiting for someone to serve. If your body is tense, your movement is not smooth. But if you are able to be relaxed, your movement is very nimble, you see. So you can even try it yourself. Try to learn to catch. You can tense and wait for somebody to throw the ball and try to catch. Your reaction is very slow. But if you learn how to relax, you will be able to catch the ball very quickly. So that's why a lot of athletes know how to use their breathing to bring themselves in the zone. That's why these 3 steps of compassion is so important. Learning how to pause and then relax. So that will help you bring your mind and body to a state of composure. Now the next thing is how to think. So the important thing about thinking is that the psychologists have mentioned the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. I'll give you a very simple technique. It's called Control Alternate Delete. You see, when you want to reset your computer, you press Control Alternate Delete, isn't it? And that's how you reset your computer. You can use the same thing to reset your mind. What do I mean by that? Control, what does it mean? Take charge of the things within your control and fix what can be fixed. In other words, take control of whatever is within your reach. That is control. And then learn to let go, learn to find a way you can think of things in a more positive way. Change the way you look at things, how you perceive your circumstances, or how you respond to them. So this is alternate. Instead of reacting, now you have an alternate way of responding. And finally, if you can't change anything and you can't respond, then free yourself of the worry because it's outside your control. Free yourself from the things outside your control and stop worrying about it. So this is really what Control Alternate Delete simply means. Take control of what's within your control. Change the way you perceive your circumstances so you look at it more positively, and let go, release, let go, delete whatever is outside your control. Right? This is the think part. Another aspect of the think part, that think is an acronym. Whenever you think, THINK, make sure it is truthful, helpful, improving, necessary, and kind. THINK, truthful, helpful, improving, necessary, and kind. So choose your thoughts according to that. And this is really the think part. So this is how you can practice pause, relax, and think to bring yourself in the zone. So with this, I will just conclude that we have explored the teachings from a very scientific perspective, that emotional reactions to pleasant, unpleasant feelings lead to lust and greed and anger and hatred. Learn to pause. Pause before reacting to emotions will create this gap or this space or this window of opportunity, and then learn to relax. Relax with mindful breathing exercises. This will lead us into the zone, then help us bring more peace and tranquility in our life. And therefore, the other way is to learn how to slow down your breathing with those exercises we have tried out. Slow down your breathing, and this will lead to a more tranquil and peaceful living. That is living in the zone. So very simple, straightforward exercises we can do. So with that, I end my sharing. Thank you very much for your attention.